All right, welcome to a special video roundtable dissecting some lifts. We're going to talk about some lifts. We're going to talk about competing virtually versus in person. We're going to talk a bit about USA weightlifting and the state of weightlifting toward what hopefully is the tail end of the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is David Tao with BarBend.com, and I'm joined by a lovely and awesome cast of weightlifting characters, some very accomplished athletes, coaches, and commentators. So I will kind of shoot it to everyone to give a quick intro, and they can just basically say who they are. So first things first, I'll shoot it to JP.
Hey, David, thank you. JP Nicoletta, I'm coaching education manager with USA Weightlifting, but on the side, I've gotten to do quite a bit of commentary with BarBend and David, Pan Am's, a lot of our national meets, and of course, some of the world championships. So pleasure to see you again, David.
Thanks for joining us. Pedro, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. Pedro Meloni, Director of Events and Sponsorships at USA Weightlifting. A pleasure to be here with such accomplished athletes. JP, David, it's a pleasure.
That's completely fair. And Mattie Rogers?
Hi, I am Mattie Rogers. I'm a coach and an athlete with USAW. Not sure what else to add from there. And I'm excited to be here.
You've lifted in a few meets, won a few medals.
Yeah, a couple here and there.
You've been around. And last but certainly not least, Jourdan, good morning. Glad to have you on.
Good morning. Yeah, my name is Jourdan Delacruz, and I'm a 49 kilo weightlifter. And yeah, I feel like that's about it.
very, very focused. A very good 49 kilogram weightlifter. So let's clarify there. Well, this morning we're going to be talking about a very interesting event. It was the National University Championships combined with the AO Series 1, and it was a hybrid event, meaning there was an in-person component and there was also a virtual component, which is a little bit unlike what we've seen in years past, but obviously it was I guess a consolidation or a combo that USA Weightlifting made in order to accommodate as many athletes as possible. And I'm actually going to play some B-roll of that event that USA Weightlifting put together, a little bit of a sizzle reel. And Pedro, if you wouldn't mind, while I'm playing this, talking a little bit about how the idea for the combo or hybrid event came about.
Yeah, absolutely, David. So our idea here was to be true to our mission to enable people to lift anytime, anywhere, pretty much, right? Trying to be as inclusive as possible here, as it is the spirit of the American Open Series, right? Now the North American Open Series, since we include Canada as well. So the hybrid event basically, and the beauty about it is that you can actually elect to compete from home, or you can elect to compete from the live site, right, in Salt Lake City, which 30% of the athletes did so, and roughly 70% of those athletes elected to lift from home. So that's pretty much the concept of that event, right? You can either lift from home or you can lift from the venue, and it's still fair game. You're still competing at the same sessions together with your fellow athletes.
Now, there were a few special considerations made. For example, if you were lifting in person, you were eligible to set, for example, American records. If you were lifting virtually, you were not eligible to set American records. You need to come back at a future in-person competition and make those lifts. Why is that?
Correct. And that actually happened a couple of times, right, during this weekend. And I'm sure that we're going to talk a little bit more about it during this show. Yeah, so the thing is that for this kind of events, we do have an allowance for athletes competing online due to the scales not being necessarily calibrated when an athlete steps into the platform, right? They have to weigh in on a singlet, meaning that there's a half a kilo allowance for those athletes. No one wants to completely undress on a Zoom call, right? I would say, and then
probably I think it's actually against the Zoom's terms of service. So
most likely, yes. So that's why we included that in the rules, right? So there's this allowance, and that's one of the reasons why you cannot set up an American record. One of the things that we're working on to the future, David, if the hybrid model, if the online model moves forward, is to have a national technical official on site that would validate those American records if that comes to happen again.
Excellent. I appreciate the insight. Mattie and Jourdan, we'll go Mattie, then Jourdan, just because that's literally the order you appear on in my screen. That's no favoritism. That's just, I'm just going down the line. If you wouldn't mind, if you have competed virtually, maybe tell us a little bit about your experiences and how it compares to an in-person competition experience.
So I think almost all of us that are in the Olympic running did have to compete in the AO finals online back in December. And it really, I think it depends on what kind of athlete you are, because there's some that really thrive off of that energy and excitement of like being in person. And there's some people that makes them so nervous that they more or less crumble. So it could be advantage to compete at home for some, and it could be a major disadvantage. And I know for me personally, I think I like competing at home, but it also just feels like training. So there's not as much energy and no adrenaline. It's just kind of like, well, just another day of training. Hopefully I make my lifts.
Jourdan,
Turned out pretty well, Mattie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did enjoy it. I had, my situation was a little different because I still was with my home team. So there was still at least I think I still had 2 other girls competing at the same time I was. So like I still got that kind of like adrenaline rush, but I also got the advantage to like do my weight cut at home and in my own house with my own fridge. So I definitely really liked that. And I think it did to open up a lot of opportunities for everyone to compete. Those who like can't afford to pay for like hotels or like didn't want to travel due to COVID, like it really allowed everyone to participate. And I mean, I really like that.
So Pedro, are we going to be seeing more hybrid events moving forward?
I think so. And to Jourdan's point, I guess that was one of the reasons, right? I mean, it's when we start adding things up, especially for the North American Open Series, that you have like multiple events going. You have to travel, so there goes a round trip flight ticket. There goes 3-4 hotel room nights. It adds up real quick, right? So if we really want to be inclusive about those series, then it makes sense for us to keep on doing the hybrid. As you guys might have seen from the videos, and I'm sure that during the online events as well, there's a lot more technology. There's a lot more resources on the USA weightlifting side. JP is here in the office. He knows it very well. I mean, we invest much more on those events than for a regular in-person event. But yeah, from the athlete side, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Well, I'm only speaking for myself here, but I'm really excited to get back to doing some commentary on live in-person events.
Tell me about it.
Because the weightlifting, I mean, the best part about weightlifting is the community. So I'm excited to see folks after having not seen them for a while. And also, I'm a bit biased, but spectating in person, I think is more fun because you get to feel the vibrations, you get to hear the sounds. But still really excited that USA Weightlifting was able to bring those experiences to spectators at home during a difficult year.
So David, I think we did announce yesterday that Nationals Week, which is going to be new this year, is planned to go forward as a live event. I think we are going to be able to do it. Pedro add on to that, but that could give you the shot for commentary again. I don't know if we're going to have fans back by June, but it does sound like we're going to be able to run Nationals Week as a live event.
Yeah. JP, I'm not going to make any predictions about fans and spectators on this one because I've made a couple predictions back in March 2020, and I'm happy to inform that I was wrong most of the times. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll probably know 4 weeks before the event, 6 weeks before the event, then we'll have a more solid positions on spectators. But yeah, JP is right. We just announced that we're moving forward with full in-person event for Detroit. So excited about it.
Okay. Has everyone here who hasn't been to Detroit before on this call?
I don't think I have.
Me neither.
I went for the first time in 2019. I was shocked because you hear a lot about like Detroit. It's a city that's gone through some rough times. I went to a convention there. I had a great time. So I'm really excited to go there. And during the summer, it's absolutely gorgeous. Like Michigan during the winter, very cold. Detroit during the winter, very cold. During the summer, absolutely perfect. You can also go across the border to Canada and make it like an international weekend trip. So Bring your passport.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Right?
Oh, right. Oh, goodness, you're right. We're still in the middle of a global pandemic, and they might not allow us in. Fair point. With that, I'm going to segue onto some of the lifts from this awesome event. Let's begin with Tim Davis's 135 kilo snatch, and we're just going to break down some of these lifts, see where the conversation takes us, get the athlete's eye, the coach's eye on these. So just have some fun with it. See what we got here. All right, let's check out Tim Davis's 135 kilo snatch. Looks like his final snatch attempt of this competition. Now, JP, do you have any context on Tim Davis? Is he an athlete that you know much about?
So Tim's still a youth, 17 years old, Owensboro, Kentucky. He started lifting back in 2017. So just put it in context, all right? He was a 135 snatch. His first ever meet in March of 2017, he totaled 126 and he weighed 61. So we see this a lot with youth athletes. It's cool. I enjoy, watching kids progress and develop. And, a kid who was 61 kilos a couple of years ago is a 96 now, and he totaled 300 kilos here for the first time. So, and put himself onto 2 youth teams, Pan Ams and Youth Worlds, and he's currently ranked second in the men's youth division in the U.S. So it's fun to see kids like this developing and coming out.
I'm gonna play this again, Mattie. What did you think about this snatch?
I mean, first of all, that's an impressive number for any youth. I mean, and after only a few years of lifting, very impressive. I think it was a really good looking lift, like very solid, very stable, definitely has some more left in him. Mm-hmm. And as a youth, they always PR pretty much every meet. So I'm sure we'll see some more.
Jourdan, what do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was technically sound. He definitely looks like a youth lifter in terms of it was very spunky. It was a very
growing into his claws,
lift. He's like, yeah. But yeah, I mean, from what I'm looking at, I don't see anything, especially this was his second attempt, you said?
Third attempt. He missed his first.
Okay.
Made his second, came out with a big old 8 kilo jump and made that. So the confidence of youth.
Yes, impressive. Wow. Yeah, he definitely has more in him. Definitely.
I'm curious, Mattie and Jourdan, look, Tim is obviously an athlete who's put on some size over the course of his relatively young weightlifting career, moving from a 61 kilo athlete to a 96 kilo athlete, as JP said. When you're that young and you're growing that fast, your proportions are going to change pretty rapidly. I mean, your lever lengths, your limb lengths, your body's just, he's clearly grown up in the sport of weightlifting. If you're working with an athlete who is still very much kind of growing into their body, how often are you addressing things like positioning, hand positioning on the barbell as people might be getting taller or longer, things like that?
Well, for me, because I do work with pretty much exclusively youth, I see it all the time. And a lot of it is just constantly working on technique and positional things. It's never something that you kind of push to the side and say, okay, we're just going to do heavy singles now. Like, it's always a work in progress. And a lot of times, like, hand positioning and things like that just kind of happen on its own. Like, you'll just come to a day and you're like, this does not look right anymore. And then you'll address it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't coach any youth athletes, but I would assume as a coach, you would be very open-minded to things that, like, as a senior lifter, you wouldn't think about ever changing up again, like your grip or your start position, really. But as a growing athlete, literally growing in size, I would assume you have to keep pretty open-minded about the simplest things.
Let's take a look at Tim's clean 165 clean and jerk. I believe this was a second attempt after he had missed it on his first. So he had an interesting competition where he actually missed both of his openers. But spoiler alert, is able to put some green on the board here. Now, JP, do we know if this is a competition PR for him?
Oh yeah, his prior best was 275. So I think Mattie mentioned every meet youth lifters are improving. He's improving pretty big, pretty quickly. So he did 275 at National Juniors last year in February.
Okay, so about a year, and he puts 25 kilos on his total. I think most lifters would probably take that progression. 25 kilos in a year would be pretty good, right?
At any size.
Mattie, what did you anything you spotted on this lift that you either stuck out to you in a good way, or maybe something you're like, oh, he might want to work on that moving forward?
No, I think it looked good. I think, like Jourdan said, he very much lifts like a youth lifter. You can tell that he's young, but it's also, I think, with like the end range of youth, it's really cool when you can watch them start to shift from that like kid to young adult, and you can see their movement kind of become more refined. And I feel like he's like just on the edge of that, like he's almost there.
Just Jourdan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it definitely is just some cleaning up to do. But I mean, seriously, very solid, especially for what you said he started in 2017.
Yep.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And JP, is it the first time that he makes a youth war team or Ben M's team too?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, these are his first. No, actually, I'm sorry. He was on another team, but I'd have to go back. I think it was Youth Pan Am.
Oh, okay.
Well, Tim Davis, certainly an athlete for us to watch. I'm actually really pleased by that. I'm from Kentucky originally. He's a Kentucky lifter. There was a time when there weren't a lot of weightlifters coming out of Kentucky. As I see more of that, it gives me a little pride in my home state. So with that, let's move on to Amber Fazio with an 86 kilo snatch. And as we play this is an athlete. She was competing virtually. JP, this is her second attempt. JP, do we know much about Amber?
Well, not only do we know about Amber, Tony specifically knows about Amber. Mattie coached her. And Mattie, correct me if I'm wrong, her prior best was somewhere around 70, in the high 70s, right? So this is her second attempt with 86. She opened with 83. From what I could tell, that was a PR, right?
Yeah, so we just started working together in December. And she's put in a lot of really good work since then. I think her best when I got her was around 78 or 80 in competition. So since she's mine, I can be extra picky and say this was not her best lift, but it is a huge improvement from just a couple months ago.
I loved her patience at the bottom of the snatch there. Is that fairly typical for her, Mattie?
It is now. We've been working a lot on overhead stability. That's probably the biggest thing that we've been trying to improve. So I'm definitely glad that she has some of that now, because I think in prior times this lift would have been a lot more difficult because she wouldn't have been as patient. So yay for overhead stability.
And
Mattie, she finished seventh at 71. She did a 184 total. I think we'll see a clean and jerk in a second. But that 184 was good to put her on the Youth World and Youth Pan Am team. Were you guys coming in looking at a total? Was it, let's see what we get? Did you how much did the qualification piece of this play into it for you guys?
So that was the main goal. It was her first meet as a 71 as well. She was a 64, but she was cutting a little bit, and I don't like youths to generally cut unless it's some like last chance to make something. So we decided to make the move up. So I think as of right now, she's around 67. So we knew it was going to be hard to make a team and compete in a higher weight class for the first time, but we also knew what the numbers were. So we kind of just went after it, and it ended well for us.
Now, Mattie, I'm sorry, I should have done my research more coming into this. Is she your first youth athlete to make an international team?
Technically, yes. I've had a few before that. I was their like developmental coach, and then they transitioned to another coach basically the meet before they made their international team. So she's the first one to be under my coaching and make the team.
Well, congratulations. By the way, this was a lift that was picked out. I think even before we knew who was going to be on the call. So this was not one to just like butter you up, but congratulations. Awesome to see the work you're doing with her. And Jourdan, I do actually have a question for you on this. I noticed that Amber here, after she, stabilizes in the bottom as she's standing up. And Mattie mentioned that overhead stability is something that Amber has been working on. We have a little bit of strafing here over to the lifter's left. She's able to come away with a good lift, but is that something that if a lifter is experiencing time and time again, they might be favoring a certain side, they might be having to stabilize by walking to the side. What are some things lifters can work on to combat that in training?
Well, just based off my personal experience, I would first talk to a physical therapist just to see if you do have any like tightness in certain certain sides that could be causing the bar to be pulled to the left or the right. If you're jumping to the left or the right, it could be, it depends. So we want to see like physiologically, is everything even? And then if it is, yeah, I think a lot of weightlifters, we don't get a lot of accessory work moving in like the lateral direction. We're very just like up and down. So incorporating some of those like traditional strength and conditioning accessories, I think is helpful for weightlifters, especially when like the bar does kind of go sideways, like just being able to stabilize that in like, if it's going sideways, you got to be able to be strong in that like lateral position. So yeah, I think those are my two thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's move on to Amber's, a clean and jerk we have of hers highlighted here. And I believe this is her third attempt. So we'll get some great context from Coach Mattie here after we watch this lift. 98 kilos.
And good job on the local loading crew too, of loading that bar exactly like it should be loaded. So that's one of the things about the online events, right? You have to use your own loaders to get that barber ready.
You gotta promise some friends you'll take them out to lunch after.
Actually,
locally.
I had a chance. I believe I was refereeing on this session, and I apologize. I can't remember. Mattie, she missed her second, and I don't remember if it was a close miss on a jerk or what happened on that. But she did come back here. This is another PR, and she opened again with a PR on the 93 that she made. So take us along, like some of what happened on the series here with her.
So she got called for a press out on the second one, and that
I'll say I was the ref that gave her away.
Well, thank you. So we knew basically the bare minimum total that we needed for any youth international, and that was opener. And then there were like 3 other girls all spread across different sessions that we were kind of battling against. So we were like, well, let's just get the biggest total we can, basically. So 98 did beat one of the other girls. We're like, that puts us in a really good position. She also, this was her first meet split jerking. She was a squat jerker before, which I told her the day that I got her was not going to stay. But we've seen some good improvements with that alone, just in consistency.
I'm a little shocked, actually. I would not have guessed this is her first ever meet split jerking. One thing I do want to ask Mattie is, her pull here is, I mean, it looks like she basically could have power cleaned this or close to it. Is that pretty typical for this athlete?
She is kind of absurdly strong. I mean, her front squat and deadlift are both around like 130 something, 140. So cleans are never an issue. It's more so, well, it's pretty much only the jerk.
Fair enough. So she's only been split jerking. She had only been split jerking for basically like 2 or 3 months before this.
Yeah, her first split jerks were, I believe, January.
Very well done to both coach and athlete on that and making that transition. We love JP and I. We love watching squat jerks, especially if it's not an athlete we expect to do a squat jerk if we've never seen them before. They're fun for spectators, but there are only a handful of people in the world who can really pull them off, right?
Yeah, and as a coach, it's absolutely terrifying. It's not what you want.
Jourdan, what do you think about the squat jerk? I remember a few years ago, actually it was in the early days at BarBend, a lot of weightlifting fans online were watching, could be the Chinese team or some other famous squat jerkers, and they were saying, this is the future of weightlifting. Everyone's going to be squat jerking. Here we are 5 years later. Some people are squat jerking, but not everyone is. Jourdan, I'm curious as to your thoughts on the merits of the squat jerk versus the split jerk.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like less people are squat jerking now compared to 5 years ago. We like tried it and we're like, not working out.
Was it ever anything you like? Did you have that experimentation phase when you were finding the right jerk style for yourself?
No, if you try jerking, you better have just an absurd squat because you're basically going to squat up your clean again. So I did not, I only have like one good clean and that's about it. So I'm not squatting it again. So no, personally, I have not experimented with it, but I do feel like I was part of that, like that 5-year phase where everyone was trying it out. But I do think it is a little odd when we have youth and junior lifters come in and they have only squat jerked before, like they've never split jerked. And I think that's pretty strange because like they're young, I feel like you can do anything with them. Like they're open-minded, they're not usually dealing with injuries. So like, I don't know why you wouldn't try split jerk first. Maybe it's like they just came in and they're like, yeah, I want to squat jerk and only squat jerk. But usually Spencer's like, yeah, we're gonna try split, and if that absolutely doesn't work, we'll go back, and it usually works. So
Well, this is one example where I think Mattie has converted a squat jerker to potentially a lifelong split jerker here.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, let's actually, speaking of youth athletes, someone I want to highlight next is Hampton Morris, who's an athlete. Someone joked online that Hampton Morris has been 16 for the past 7 years. In that Hampton Morris has been an athlete we've been following for a while. Extremely strong, had a pretty good performance at this competition in person. So wanted to break it down a little bit. JP, anything you can tell us about Hampton and what this meet, how it ranked for him as far as, any PRs, as his progression as a lifter?
Well, it's funny. You make a good joke. People feel like he's been a youth age lifter forever. What you may not realize is how young he started and how active he really is. I mean, last year in the pandemic year where no competitions in theory were going on, I found that he competed like 8 times, including some of the online meets. And you're looking at a 17-year-old who's already at about 50 official competitions. So, I mean, forget about the progress that he's made, which has been terrific. He's our #1 youth men's athlete right now, or youth male athlete right now on both youth Pan Am and Youth Worlds. He's ranked 1. And he now, with this meet in the clean and jerk anyway, which we'll get to in total, he finally beat the American record standard at youth in the clean and jerk in total. So I can understand why people feel that way, because he has been around a while, despite just being 17. His previous best snatch, I think, was 116 at 61. So he's playing around there. And, I like watching Hampton lift. And one thing I do want to know from Jourdan and Mattie, Hampton has sort of a quirky thing, I guess you can call it, where he eats a ton of bananas during competitions. I don't know how many, just call it a ton. But his thing is he's like smashing bananas in his face the whole competition. Do you guys have any routines or things that you do when you're lifting?
I definitely don't eat a ton of bananas. I feel like that would make me not feel so great. I don't know. I think my routine is like not have a routine because I don't want to get so attached to something and then fly who knows where and then not have it. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I feel like I'm with Mattie on that. Like, other than what I do at the bar, you have to be so, I don't know what the word is, like flexible, because we never know what's going to happen, especially traveling internationally. But I have seen Hampton eat those bananas in person before, and it made me sick. He's literally just like crushing a bowl of rice and some bananas. It's impressive.
But what happens if he goes to a country that doesn't have fresh bananas accessible?
He'll travel. He'll bring them.
I guess he has to find like unripe bananas and just time it perfectly so that they are the perfect ripeness by the time he's
green bananas, right?
Yeah, he starts with green bananas. Okay, let's check out his clean and jerk, which JP can give us some context, or just did give us some context on.
Well,
This is, oh, go ahead, JP.
what was this, 45? His best ever is 54. And he did that a body weight class up at 67. He went back down to 61 for the NAO. But I like this lift in particular for him as a big deal because, one, it was the Youth American record. He finally got it. But there was a tough one he dealt with last year at Junior Nationals in California where he had a close miss with 45 on his second attempt. And then he actually went up to 47 on his third. And he put in a great attempt, got white lights from the ref, but actually lost the lift due to a jury overturn. He wound up bombing out of nationals, junior nationals, because of that. So, he was upset. His dad, his coach were upset. But, to see him come back even now, a year later, even after doing a bigger weight, to have it done officially because he was there in Utah, I thought was a lot of fun to see. I thought it was really cool.
And this record counts, right? Because it was in person. Yeah.
This is either this record definitely counts because it's in person, or he and his family put together the most elaborate USA weightlifting replica setup that you've ever seen. Mattie, what do you think about this lift?
Especially because it was his second, so he missed his first and had to come back and make that. And that's one thing to do on snatches, but I feel like on clean and jerks, that is tough to do. It's a really good lift. I hate to even critique him because I think he's been lifting longer than I have. Because I remember when I was starting, I do remember hearing his name. So he might be more experienced than me.
All right, Jourdan, anything you might critique on or celebrate on this lift?
Gosh, I don't know. He has been lifting for a long time, and if I can remember correctly, I feel like his elbows don't ever fully lock out. Is that correct, JP?
Well, yeah, he doesn't have a ramrod straight arm, but
they're not. It's not like an obvious So
there's a little curve to it.
Yeah. So I'm impressed when people don't have very obvious elbows and they still solidify that lockout, even though it just doesn't appear to be as obvious as someone with hyperextended elbows, I would guess. But yeah, he did a really good job on the lockout. That's what I noticed.
And one thing I'll say is Hampton is known on social media for his prodigious squatting strength. He has just leg strength for days. That clean looks like he could have gotten in 3 more front squats and still been fine for the jerk there.
He's not our top ranked youth athlete for nothing. That's for sure.
Let's move on to Kelly Wild, who had an 87 kilo snatch we got some footage of. This is an athlete who lifted at home, California strength athlete. And I want to say something's pretty interesting about this attempt because you'll see up in the top right there, she has to run on to beat the clock and
still
is able to with 3 seconds left. I'm going to play that again, but it was one of the more exciting things you'll ever see in a virtual meet here.
And there seemed to be a little bit of arguing after that, right? Say, well, what's going on? Where's my clock, right?
That's cardio for weightlifters, running up to the platform. She comes away with the lift. Really impressive kind of motions. What was going on there? JP, any more context you have on Kelly or this particular lift?
This is a couple of kilos below her best official ever. It's the clean and jerk I want to talk about with Kelly.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to that in a second, but I'm curious from Mattie and Jourdan's perspective. As an athlete, have you ever had to just sprint on stage and kind of grip it and rip it in order to beat the clock?
I don't think there's ever been a time that I have. I feel so bad for her because that's one, that's tough to do just even if you're not stressed, but also there's the what's going on, who messed up, I'm not getting to do the number that I wanted, all of that, and sprinting and gripping and ripping. That's a lot happening. And to make it that easily is impressive.
Yeah, she's definitely very strong. Just to be able to grab it and go. That's pretty impressive. I did have a youth or junior worlds competition where I was in the back room, as far away as you could possibly be, and I had to sprint up onto stage. But I think I still had 8 seconds left by the time I got to the bar. for her, I feel like she literally only had like one. She just grabbed it and went.
Oh, go ahead, JP. Or go ahead, Pedro.
Now on this one, I'm fairly sure that the marshal didn't take the change, probably because it was sent after the 30 seconds, the declaration. And well, they were competing from home, right? So they had to post it on Zoom call and text it to everyone, so every coach would acknowledge that change as well. So I believe that's what happened on this one.
And for context, when we were first putting together this folder of videos, I believe this file was originally titled "Wild 87 Kilogram Snatch," and I played it not realizing it was Kelly Wild, and I was like, that is pretty crazy. Like, what a wild snatch. Then JP was like, David, you're kind of being an idiot. Like, that's her name. I was like, all right, well, let's talk about the clean and jerk, which is, I know, something JP wanted to take a look at here. A little bit less, like slightly less stressful on this lift from the spectator's perspective.
Well, from the spectator's perspective, maybe not, but don't forget, this is 119. It's an unofficial American record to cap off a 6-for-6 day. And, we can take our pick between this lift and another one that we're going to see on what was the lift of the meet. And this was up there. I mean, 119 as a 59 is a pretty tremendous clean and jerk. And like I said, she was 6-for-6 in doing it. And I think she had done 117 is what I had found a couple of years ago, body weight or 2 class up. So she's managed to pull off something very difficult in that she's gone down a category or 2 and has seen her total go up pretty big over that period. She's up 10 kilos on her total just since October of last year. So, I mean, this was a tremendous performance, I think, over the weekend.
Yeah, fantastic work. Mattie, any comments on this performance? Or, I mean, there's not a ton to criticize. There's just a lot of green on the board. She went 6-for-6, but anything about this lift that sticks out to you?
I mean, it didn't even look hard. It looks like she could do 5-8 more kilos. And I don't know her personally, but I feel like that's kind of all of her competitions always look like that. Like, they just look like she could do so much more, which is very impressive.
Jourdan, any thoughts?
Yeah, same. I love her approach to the bar. Now that this is a less stressful situation, she still just kind of grabs it and goes. Like, she doesn't think too much about it. And you can tell she's just a really strong person because just the way she just pulls it off the ground and moves so fast.
My impression from these lifts, she's just kind of all business on this.
Yeah.
It's not like this elaborate setup, not the, she's ready to go. So really cool to see her perform and definitely a competitor to watch moving forward. JP, you mentioned another lift. Where do you want to send us next?
Well, if that wasn't the lift of the meet, maybe Madison Pinellas was. So why don't you go there? You can go right to Madison's clean and jerk, I think.
Oh, well, we do have a snatch. Let's watch that. I already have it queued up from Madison, but we can then shoot over to her clean and jerk. It's her, I believe, her opening snatch, which is smooth as butter. Let's go to the clean and jerk. That's the exciting one. All right.
And just a bit of context, I think, for Pinell here, and Jourdan, we definitely want to hear from you in this, but arguably the 49, no, actually I'll say it pretty much straight up. The 49 kilo class is the deepest in the country. And if you didn't notice Madison Pinell at the December American Open final, you have to notice her now with this. This is a 109, right? Unofficial American record at 49. And, I know the plan, I'm sure if you asked her, the plan for Pinell was to try to make the Pan Am team. They fell a kilo or 2 short ultimately in total. But, we are still in a new quad, even though you guys are finishing up Tokyo qualification and ultimately getting ready for Tokyo. There'll be other teams. I think there'll be plenty of other big meets in the years ahead, heading into 2024. And this 109 is, I think, a pretty huge statement going into the new quad. I mean, Jourdan, this was a huge lift, period.
Jourdan, did this lift get your attention when it was done?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was 109.
Do you agree with, I mean, you're a little bit biased, but do you agree with JP that the 49 kilo category is the deepest in American weightlifting?
I mean, yeah, I live it, so I feel like there are girls coming out all the time, and it is weird finishing an old quad and also like seeing girls come out for the new one. I know Haley Reichardt's doing really well right now. Obviously, Madison Pinellas doing amazing too. So it's like, you know, for me personally, like I have to keep focusing on what I'm doing right now. But that next quad is gonna be rough for the 49 girls.
It's good. It's great for spectators because we just get to sit back, eat popcorn or bananas if you're Hampton Morris, and just kind of enjoy these like really, really close competitions. But for a lot of folks gunning for that top spot, so it'll be interesting to see that develop, and it'll be, I mean, great to see Jourdan right there in leading the pack. So really excited for that. Mattie, do you have any thoughts on this lift or as a coach, this body weight category?
Well, just for context, didn't she also come down from like the 59 class or something, like an insane cut, right?
Definitely 55. So she quietly did a Jourdan. You know, what Jourdan is doing. Madison quietly did the same thing. And I think she did it last year at Salt Lake at the American Open, if I remember correctly. But yeah, she had moved down from 53 or 55, and her total has gone up since she's done it.
Yeah, because I don't know her personally, but I thought I saw something that said she cut from like 58 kilos or something, that's a huge amount of weight to cut, and to still be improving your total is kind of insane. And like, sorry, Jourdan, but there was a time when the 71s were also pretty deep, and it was like always a battle of 3 or 4 of us from teams. So I don't envy your position right now.
I feel like, you know, in the previous quad, a deep weight class was like 3 or 4 really, really fantastic lifters. I feel like for this coming quad, a deep weight class might be like 7 or 8 really, really good lifters. It's just these lifters, like Jourdan said, they're kind of coming out of the woodwork. You never know, over the course of a single competition, it's suddenly like, wow, there are 2 more elite weightlifters who could take home medals in this weight class. It's kind of insane to see the progression of the sport in the U.S.
And how great is that, right? I mean, for competition, that's amazing. I had it here, like in the D, E, F sessions, you have like differences of like 2-3 kilos in the total. But if we see that in the A sessions as well moving forward, that would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great time to be a spectator in USA weightlifting. If you're in some of these weight classes, though, it's a harrowing time. You have to kind of like keep track of who's coming up behind you, which Jourdan does a fantastic job of, by the way. I know we've given her a little bit of grief in this section. Let's watch a 1 or 2 more here as we kind of wrap up this broadcast. And I do want to take a second to say a huge thanks before I forget, because I will definitely forget at the end, to Jourdan Delacruz, Mattie Rogers, Pedro Meloni, and JP Nicoletta for joining this to break down this meet. Thank you all for taking your time this morning to do that. JP, I want to put you in the driver's seat. We get to watch one more lift or one more of these videos. Where might you point us?
Go to Carly Giannatti.
Snatch?
Either snatch or clean and jerk.
We'll start with the snatch.
When we're talking about up-and-comers, which is kind of the theme of where you just were, right? In the next quad, who's going to be somebody to pay attention to? This was Carly's second meet ever. She's a junior, and she qualified for the junior Pan Am teams right now, both of them, because remember, in 2021, there are scheduled to be 2 separate junior Pan Am events. The 2021, which got rescheduled, and now the 2021 junior Pan Ams are supposed to happen in October as 2 separate meets. Carly is from Long Island and New York, and she's in her second meet here and qualified, or is at least on the rankings for both of those junior Pan Am teams. That's not something you see very often. I would say in the past, there have been a couple of people who just lifted once or twice and earned their way onto a team, more often in youth, at the youth level. But to see it at the junior level, it's not something every day. I mean, it's not Junior Worlds, it's Junior Pan Ams, but that's still not an easy team to make by any stretch of the imagination. And to see somebody do that after 2 meets, she was silver overall at the National Universities. That was what she entered. She didn't enter the NAO. But, you know, 3 for 3 in the snatch, just capped off her third one. And, you know, from the look of it, she might be on 2 junior Pan Am teams this year. she's certainly on one.
Now, Mattie and Jourdan, that is kind of the expectation. A lifter by their second meet should qualify for an international team, right? That's pretty standard.
Yeah, sure. That's totally normal.
I'm joking, just for context. If you're going to Mattie or Jourdan for coaching, they'd be happy if you made an international team on your second meet, but it's not the standard expectation, I don't think.
By the way, the other thing here, this was a 6-kilo jump. I don't know what happened on her second attempt, but she wound up with the automatic increase from 84 to 85.
Yeah.
And then she jumped to 91. So a 6-kilo jump is also not something you're going to see every day in the snatch either.
And I think they clearly, she and her coach clearly had international team qualification in mind, because that is just about the largest American flag that I've ever seen in a gym. But it makes for quite the striking backdrop. Let's check out this clean and jerk here. I believe this was her opener at 110.
She needed. Yep.
I believe you, JP, that this was her second meet. I do believe you. I think you're an honest person. I have trouble believing you that this was her second meet, because this does not look like, I mean, Mattie, what do you think? If you saw this person lifting and had no context, what might you deduce from their lifting career?
I would say, if not a few years in lifting, at least a few years in CrossFit, maybe. And that was my next question is, what is her athletic background? Do we know?
I'm not 100% sure. I do think that there's some CrossFit in there, though, Mattie. It's a good guess.
That would make sense.
Now, I have a question. This one I'm going to aim at, direct at Jourdan first. Jourdan, if someone comes to you and they're really interested in weightlifting and maybe they don't have a significant background in it, are there any sports that you really hope they might have some experience in? This is like a controversial topic, but which other sports make the best base for weightlifting, in your opinion?
I mean, well, both Mattie and I were competitive cheerleaders. I've seen a lot of gymnastics. Harrison was a gymnast. I've seen some endurance, like soccer, a lot of track, but I don't know. I guess it really depends. Like, honestly, if you're just like a well-rounded athletic person, you're gonna go far in weightlifting. I don't know if there's a particular sport that's gonna set you up more so than the rest. I could see like being a gymnast or a cheerleader, just having that flexibility already. I could see that being very helpful. But in terms of explosiveness, coordination, body awareness, I feel like as long as you're an athletic person, you're gonna do well.
I'm really saddened by that answer, because if the key is just to be a naturally athletic, well-rounded person, I mean, I shouldn't have even begun weightlifting in the first place. No, I'm absolutely kidding. That is great insight, and it is. I did want to bring that up sneakily, because we are, our two guests today are both former competitive cheerleaders, now highly competitive international level weightlifters. So pretty neat to see. I'm not going to say you have to have an extensive cheerleading background to be one of USA Weightlifting's top athletes, but it certainly doesn't seem to hurt at this point. So appreciate that context. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of this discussion. I do want to, just say, is there anything else that anyone has to add? And I'll shoot it to Mattie and Jourdan. Anything you're particularly excited about as we wrap up this quad, maybe actually heading into next quad, just looking even further ahead?
Well, I'm excited that this quad is finally going to be over soon. Hopefully goes out with a bang in Tokyo, but I guess we never really know till we're there. And then I guess we just jump right back into qualifying. Kind of sucks for us, we don't get any kind of break. But I guess that also is still to be determined, because we don't really know what qualification looks like yet. So I would assume we'll get like a couple weeks off and then we'll be right back into it.
Jourdan, anything else to add? Mattie said a lot there.
Yeah, heavy stuff. Yeah, I mean, I love seeing the growth in weightlifting, and even though like I'm still an athlete and I'm still competing in it, like if you take a step back, like it's so great for the sport of weightlifting, and I think like for women in general. Like I think it's awesome to see so much growth in the sport. But yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing this quad, taking my week off, and then going back.
Well, I really appreciate everyone joining us today, and I'm going to stop my screen share here. On behalf of USA Weightlifting, on behalf of BarBend, and on behalf of fans of American weightlifting, thank you all so much for joining us, and hopefully it's a discussion we can replicate a little bit down the road. And my hope is that maybe we can get some athletes and coaches together to do this in person after an in-person event down the road. So Mattie, Jourdan, Pedro, JP, Kelsey, who's been our technical guru for this recording, thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it.